quiz, boys and girls. How many WNBA head coaches are black women? Now, before you answer, here are a few things to consider. 70% of the league is black. At the end of the 2022 season, half of the league's 12 coaches were black, with 3 of those 6 coaches being black women. And there were 8 head coach openings this last WNBA offseason. Ready for the answer to the question? 1. That's how many black women are head coaches in the WNBA. Now, that's a bizarre and, to be honest, an embarrassing statistic for a league that is overrepresented with black women in terms of the players. But the league having just 1 black woman is far from a low point, because as recently as 2020, there wasn't a single black woman serving as head coach in the league. But this isn't a new issue for women's basketball, but just a carryover from what we've seen at the college level too. Now, I'm not calling anyone racist. I'm just taking a closer look at the systems and structures, because they are often designed to be inequitable. Even if we're talking about a women's sport where there is often an assumption that equity is a natural byproduct. The WNBA has often received high praise for its diverse hiring. The Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sports has given the league an A+ for its racial and gender hiring practices every year the league has been in existence. Now, full disclosure, Dr. Richard Lapchak, the director of the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport, is someone I have a deep respect for. We've worked closely together many times, and he is internationally respected as a civil rights leader. But the numbers from his institute don't quite tell the story, and certainly not the full history.
People want to know, though, will you ever be a head coach for a WNBA team?
You know what? I'm going to say this for the first time. I put my name in a hat to coach this year for 2 teams, all the way down to the end. I won't say who those 2 teams are, but I did not get
the job.
picked. And I felt like I would never make another attempt to go into coaching.
Really?
In the WNBA, yes. Because, you know, it's like you got to be 10 times as great as a black woman in this industry.
There's only 1 left, I
And
think. 1 left.
when I tell you that who these people hired is not better than me and what I could do for this team and players, but it's okay, because I, again, am a very much that what's for you is for you.
Yes.
And that's not for me, and I'm okay with that. So I will never attempt to coach in the WNBA again.
Now, if your counter argument to Lisa Leslie not getting a WNBA head coaching opportunity is that she lacks coaching experience, keep in mind that she did coach in the Big 3 in 2019. And that same year, she not only won a Big 3 championship, but she was also named Coach of the Year. Now, let's say you want to dismiss that too. Well, when it comes to male coaches, the WNBA hasn't had a problem hiring them despite their lack of experience in coaching women. Now, sometimes it's worked out, as was the case with Bill Laimbeer and Michael Cooper, who both brought their respective teams WNBA championships. And sometimes it's been disastrous, as was the case with Derek Fisher, who was hired to coach the LA Sparks despite a terrible coaching record with the New York Knicks. Fisher, who had never coached women before, finished with a 54-46 record with the Sparks and infamously benched Candace Parker in a playoff elimination game, which ultimately became one of the reasons that Parker left the Sparks to play for the Chicago Sky. Now, some have questioned whether the hiring pool is deep enough and if the WNBA is in a position to attract solid WNBA coaches. But is it lack of candidates and money, or lack of intention? Now, there's a good pool of former players to choose from, including LaToya Sanders, Breon January, and Christy Tolliver, all of whom are currently WNBA assistants and have served in the league as assistants for multiple years, with Tolliver also having coached at the NBA level. As for money, that's also about intention too. The Phoenix Mercury hired Nate Tibbetts in 2023 and immediately made him the highest paid coach in the WNBA, with a reported salary of $1.2 million a year. Now, Tibbetts was an NBA assistant for 12 years, but prior to the Mercury, he never coached women's basketball. He came into the league making more money than Las Vegas Aces head coach Becky Hammon, who won back-to-back WNBA championships, played in the WNBA, and was an NBA assistant under Greg Popovich. Now, this is no shade to Tibbetts, but he's somewhat of an example of the built-in sexism that women coaches face. The WNBA has this history of hiring men who have never coached women's basketball and giving them premium salaries and opportunities. And conversely, there also is a trend of being more impatient when it comes to Black coaches. In the offseason, the Chicago Sky fired Teresa Witherspoon, one of the league's most decorated and fiercest players, after just one season. The Atlanta Dream also fired Tanisha Wright after just 3 seasons. Now, there is understandable concern that now that there is more money in women's basketball and more substantive growth, the fear is that this will mean more opportunity for men and not for women. Before the NCAA included women's sports, more like they were forced to oversee women's sports because of a court order, women's sports were governed by the Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women. Now, when women were governing women's sports, over 90% of women's teams were coached by women. By the early 1980s, after the NCAA took over, that number had declined to 51%. And today, roughly 60% of women's sports at the college level are coached by men. Meanwhile, guess what percentage of men's college sports are coached by men? 95%. Black women account for 12% of head coaching positions in college basketball across all divisions. 30% of the players who play women's college basketball are Black. But considering 90% of Black women who play college basketball graduate with a degree, that right there should provide somewhat of a supply of coaching candidates. Now, the WNBA is riding a strong upward trajectory, and as the league grows, their standard shouldn't be to do things exactly as the men. It should be their goal to not only make money, but create a new standard of empowerment and opportunity for women. Not just do the same things we've already seen before. I'm Jemele Hill, and I approve this message.